Hello, and welcome to our Sewing Sangha. You'll find a series of videos here on how to make a Rakusu in the Soto Zen tradition, and more specifically in the tradition of the Upaya Zen Center and Roshi Joan Halifax's lineage. We'll go through each step in detail to help you create your own Rakusu. You might want to like the video and subscribe to the channel and click on that notification bell so you'll learn when new videos are posted. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them in the comments section. We'll do our best to answer them. I'm Cheryl Dyson, and today we're going to get our fabric and begin the process of making the tucks that will be in the face of the Rakusu. Now, this is going to be a two-part process. So this video will be the first part of creating the tucks and do a little reminder so we can refresh your memory on a couple of things. And then the second video will be how to put them in alignment and do the basting. So we'll be ready to join the strips. So the preparation for this, like we've talked about for mise en place, for our preparation when we're cooking, this in a sense is that preparation or mise en placing our individual strips for the face of the Rakusu, so that then when it's time to join them, they'll be ready to go and it'll be a smooth and easy process. So let's go to the downward camera and let's get started. All right, so we're going to be using our fabric today in this episode. So as a recap, what you should have accomplished already is to lay out and cut your strips. And hopefully you've taken the advice to use the step stitch or the spaced back stitch to join the long straps that will be the neck straps of the Rakusu. So that long 42-inch straight line of just hand sewing, very meditative, I hope you found, and it's prepared you to have that real good muscle memory for how to do the step stitch. Now, we're not going to do step stitch today. We won't be doing a sewing today. But what we will be doing is aligning and folding the tucks of the face strips. So now that you have your strips cut out, you'll want to collect the A, B, C, and D strips. There'll be 2 A's, 2 C's, and 1 D, and 4 B's. So those strips are going to be the ones that we're going to fold and create the tucks for the fabric. Now, I also hope that you've completed the paper pattern. And the reason that that's important is that when you take a look at the page that you get from the Rakusu pattern book, and I'll be linking to the pattern book below. And when you get that copy, make that copy of the pattern book, and really be sure that it's 100% in size. Sometimes copiers want to take a PDF and just have it be a smaller size, just to fit, instead of having it to expand to fit the entire print area. So if that doesn't make sense, because sometimes computer instructions are like, I have no idea what that means. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. I would recommend then taking it to your local copy shop and talk to the folks behind the counter, and they'll be very happy to help you make sure that it's correct. And also take a little ruler with you and make sure that it measures the exact amount of the exact shape that it's labeled as. Because that way, when we take, and hopefully you have your folded pieces ready to go, and that way, when you have these folded pieces, you know that you are doing your tucks correctly, that the tucks, and Marilyn calls them the innies and the outies. So here's an outie, the D, our D strip has this nice outie, and we know we've done it correctly because the paper is, much more secure than the fabric, because the fabric, if I just do this, it's just going to fall apart, so fall down. So I'm going to show you some tricks of the trade for making sure that that doesn't happen, and that you'll keep your tucks will be nice and secure. And then in part two, we're going to line them up so that we know that they'll be matching, that the tucks are going to be in the right place, head in the right direction, and that then we'll be ready to be able to join the strips. So preparation is key here, and it really does make a big difference in the ease of being able to put those strips for the face of the rakusu together. And that way you're hopefully won't find yourself frustrated or having to take them apart to try again. We're going to do our best to do it right the first time, and do this with precision. So we've talked about that before. We're striving for precision, not perfection. No judgments here. We're going to do our very best, and we're going to measure, and we're going to know that our rakusu is going to be something that we have made with our own hands, and each stitch has been meditative and hopefully joyful. So let's take a look and recap a little bit. We'll move this guy to the side. And how to measure. Now, I'll be using colored fabric, different colors. I have some pink and green and different colors so that you'll be able to see the difference in the different strips and which one's labeled to which, and be able to see the stitches a lot better. So black on black is a challenge to see. So what we'll do though is recap a bit on how to mark black fabric, because you're going to be marking to be sure you have your tucks in the right place and all the little nuances. So just as a recap, as we talked about this in the fabric selection video, in case you didn't need to see that one, you came right to step one, or maybe right to this step. The different ways that you can mark black fabric are pretty, there are a lot of different options. And one of my favorites is actually a simple white colored pencil. And this is, I think, a Prismacolor. A lot of times they're found in your, adult coloring book stash, or stationery stash, or snitch one from one of your kids. And we're just going to use a ruler and make a nice straight line. And it shows up really nicely. Now, if you have if you're a sewist and you have you already are making garments and marking pattern pieces, you might already have some tailor's chalk. And tailor's chalk, and I actually like yellow as a color. They have a kind of a stone color, that will work, that works as well. But this is made of chalk, and the yellow works just fine. And we're going to make a nice yellow mark, that little mark, and you can hardly tell the difference. So the other really nice fabric, tailor's chalk rather, is actually made of wax. And it's a little more delicate, so you want to be careful not to drop it. But it is made with wax, and it's a kind of a crystalline wax, so that the marks that you make will actually evaporate when you hit it with an iron. So when a lot of it, like the seam allowances that we'll be doing, are going to be inside. You'll never see them. So using the pencil is really the easiest and most and the handiest. With your anything that's going to be showing on the front, getting rid of the marks can be a little bit of a challenge, but not too bad. You can take a Q-tip with a teeny tiny bit of soap, and you don't want to wash your rakusu after it's made or put together, but you will want to do any little touch-ups. And that can be true too if you're in the zendo and perhaps you're doing shashin and you're doing your oroki meal, and a little soup gets splashed. Well, just a delicate spot cleaning will work just fine. So we're not going to worry too much about any stray marks. But this wax, tailor's wax, I guess, is a nice option, and makes a really nice clean line. And I'll be posting links to these in the description below, along with the pattern book, to make sure you have a copy of that. All right. And then for the grandma method, and since I'm not a grandma, but I'm of that age, and is a sliver of soap. And the nice soap that kind of, this is a nice hard milled soap that is almost to the point where you'd want to moisten this or get this nice and wet, and then take the new bar and press them together so you continue to use and don't waste any of the soap. But we're going to snitch this one from the soap dish and use this. And with this or the tailor's chalks, you can use a penknife and sharpen the edge, and that works as well. So we're just going to make a nice mark, and it works beautifully. So be sure you take a look at some of the ways that you can mark your black fabric, because that's going to be important to be sure that you're not trying to fold blind. So we'll have that. So that's just a little review. All right. And I'm also going to ask you to add something to your toolkit. And now this is a fancy one, but it would be great to have just a little paintbrush, a little. Now this actually came with a set of watercolor pencils, and you can use the watercolor pencils on your work, and then fill this with water, and the brush is just a little nylon or plastic or whatever it is, just very, very, very light moisture that it produces, nothing sopping wet, because you're just wanting to moisten the watercolor pencil a little bit on the paper, and then blend it around. So, but you can use any kind of a paintbrush. Now, not the like cheapy kids, the things they foist on little children with like those big nylon bristles that don't hardly pick up anything, let alone a little bit of water. But just a little paintbrush that has a soft bristles, and that you can dip in a little bit of water. Again, it'll be very, very, very tiny bit of moisture, just a wee bit of moisture. And I'll explain how we're going to use that in just a bit. But it'll be, I think, help make your life easier for holding those tucks in place. So if you want to pause the video and grab something like this, or put it on hold until you have one of these, I really recommend that. So you can join me in progress. All right. So the first thing we're going to do then is we're going to get D, or D strip. So it'll be we've cut one D. And this one is, actually the easiest one, because we have just the one large tuck in the middle, upper third or so. So you want to make sure that you have a really pretty good match for the length and the width for the D. Now I'm also going to be, for the different color fabric, I'm going to be using a friction pen. That won't work for the black fabric, unfortunately, because they don't have a white that would work with us. But a friction pen is great for, and if you see, like me, I made a practice Rakusu before I made my real one. I used actually the flat top sheet of a sheet set that I had that was 100% cotton, and I just cannibalized that flat sheet because I don't use those, and made all my strips, and then made a practice Rakusu. Now, if you're not as, I don't know, obsessive as I am, and are going right with your nice black fabric, that's great. But I really enjoyed using the friction marker, because you can iron the marks that you made, and they evaporate because it's heat sensitive. So kind of a neat little extra there. So, but not for your black fabric, unfortunately. I looked and looked for that kind of alternative. So at any rate, what we're going to do, back on track here, sorry, we're going to make sure they're nice and lined up. And we're going to make sure that we're back again with our graph paper. So in the supplies video, I emphasized having some graph paper, and that's another. So you get your a little bit of water and your soft paintbrush, have your graph paper. And the reason I want to emphasize the graph paper is that it can really help you with measuring. And this will be something we'll be using throughout here, especially when we start measuring, putting the strips together to make sure they all match up properly, so that you're not, you don't want a Rakusu that's like wonky and off kilter. You want it nice and straight, or a nice straight frame, but have one little strip going, like they're off on their own adventure. So you want to we'll be lining these up. And this is really a great way to make sure that things are in an alignment, and to keep track of where those lines are going. So again, that's a suggestion that I have to help you with this process of marking these lines. All right, so let's get started. We'll move this guy up a little bit. Hopefully, yeah, I think you can see that pretty well. All right, so I'm going to line up my D edge on the right side here with the line on the graph paper, and then line this guy up with my pattern piece. All right, so then I can take a look at where I'm going to go this way. That's the kind of the hard thing with the camera in front of me, but that's okay. We'll make it happen. And so when I'm lining this up along the line of the graph paper and along the line here, then on the line I have a nice straight line. All right. And I don't know if you noticed when I marked that I kind of made just a little bit of a line and then came back, because sometimes if you're marking, it might drag the fabric out of alignment. So fabric is a little bit more, is softer and than paper is. The paper is stiffer, and this one is just kind of drapey and soft. So we want to accommodate if it decides to move around on us, or make sure we're straight. Okay. All right, so then we've got that first line made. And let me go ahead and maybe put this way. Keep everything lined up. I'll try going underneath. And the nice thing about the graph paper is that each square is 1/4 of an inch. So it really does help you to find your measurement and make sure you're correct with that. All right. So as things kind of want to, like falling leaves, they want to move around a little bit, but we're going to bring them in alignment here. Okay. Okay. We're still doing really great. Sure, all the edges are nice. Okay. And I'm going to bring the whole thing down a little bit so I can reach. Oops. And make sure that my graph paper is nice and lined up on the top and the bottom, and move it over if you need to make sure that the side is also straight in alignment with the line of the graph paper. Because when I first started working on this adventure, I wasn't sure how to manage all this, and wound up using a T-square, and actually you have a nice little T-square built into this little gadget. But it can become kind of a challenge. You're putting things here, and feel like you have to stand on your head and get it all to line up. But when discovered, gosh, the graph paper just works great. Of course, my partner is kind of into engineering and these technical drawings is like, well, sure. So why didn't you say something before? I said, oh, I thought you knew. So anyway, no, he's very supportive. So we'll make this line. Need to come up just a wee bit. Make this line. And finish up with this line. Woohoo, that worked very nicely. Okay. So now I'm going to keep my paper pattern with the tuck folded in. Maybe we'll just give it another little finish. Yeah, give it another little squish with my fingernails. Sorry. And then, or I guess, isn't that like those videos where the little background noise is supposed to be soothing, like a little hum of whatever they call it. So, okay, now we have our first strip to work on. And we know that we need to have the top and the bottom line to come together. And this line is going to be coming out like this line. So what I'm going to do is find the line and squeeze it together. All right. Now, here's actually where you can start using your paintbrush. And this is something I learned from quilter folks. And it's helped me with little quilting projects that I've had before as well, is that cotton is really good at finger pressing, of being able just to really press that cotton, and it'll hold pretty well the fold that you're looking for. And if you moisten it just a tiny bit, like I said, just barely feel that it's moist, then I'm gonna give that a good squish. All right. So as I give that a good squish, then I find that, look at this, I have a kind of a nice fold already. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing, just dab it very lightly. You don't want to get things too carried away here. And I'm going to confirm that, is this an outie or an innie? Oh, it's an outie. So I want to make sure that I fold this one to this line and this line. Have a nice little kiss. All right, so here's our little Valentine's Day kiss with pink and pink. Okay. Oops. Excuse me, and I want to make sure. Whoa. It's a little schmutz there. And actually, I'm going to moisten the inside, a little, what would be on this dotted line, and just to make sure that I'm getting a good crease when I finger press it. Okay. Give it a good, nice crisp, crisp line. Now, I should put these over on this side, shouldn't I? Okay, what I love about these clips is I can just use them right on these folds. Now you can pin them if you like, but I'm going to recommend using the clips. And now they won't stay on forever. We're going to, because there might be some adjustments that need to be made. Because once we get all of our strips done and lined up, we might find that one is going off a little bit and you haven't done any sewing, or there's no gluing, there's no pin marks, or not, you'll be able to take the little clips off and make any little adjustments, and it'll be really easy to do that, because we don't want to commit to basting things down yet, or anything that's more permanent, so that we can have a chance to make any little adjustments that we'll need to make. So this one is, we're going to do these all in advance, and then set it aside and be able to come back, put everything in alignment, make any little adjustments, and then be able to go from there. And then we'll baste it down. And then in part two, we're going to sew the seams and put the strips together. So we're going to do this first as part one, and then part two, we're going to make any little adjustments, and we're going to baste down the folds, and then finally we'll be sewing things together. So we'll be patient. We're going to do everything in order. We're going to take things slow and easy so that we'll be able to move forward without having to go back and redo things, hopefully. All right, so let's go again with the top of the fold. All right, so we're closing in on getting D where we want it to be. So I'm going to moisten. Just moisten all the lines while I'm right here. Check, are they really? Yeah, because you can barely see it. So like, is it really working? Yeah, it's working just fine. All right, so now again, we're going to compare our pattern. And our little paper pattern shows us that this line, this bottom line, is the one that is going to go down. Okay. So now we have this configuration. So, oops, make sure I get, and that's another advantage of having these little marks, so that I can see if the fold is a little bit too high or a little bit too low. Okay. And then check my pattern yet again. And I'm going to know that that middle line is going to be folding, is the fold, and the top line is going to come here and be lined up with that bottom line. So again, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to give it a squish. And because one of the things that folks do, even with finger pressing, is they, really get in there and press along here, just like you did with like burnishing the folds of the paper, only this time with just your fingers, and making sure that it holds. And actually, you can see that that's not too bad. That's not too shabby. It's staying in place. So now I'm going to come back and use my clippies. And how about that? So this is exciting, right? This is actually really exciting. Because here you have the center. This is going to be the center of your Rakusu. All right. So honestly, even as you're doing these folds, and I know there's a lot of concentration, is it going out? And, okay, because, here's the fold going up. That's correct. This one coming up on this side. So like this, you're looking at this. Yeah, they're right. So take a moment when you make these folds and when you make this first strip, and just think about that this is going to be the center of the face of your Rakusu. And kind of, give it a little pat and kind of admire your work, admire that this is going to be something that will, when you place this rakusu around your neck, and this is going to be centered right over your heart, that you've put a lot of love and care into this. So you've made this with precision. You know that it's going to be personal to you and intimate to you. And if there are little bobbles or little places, or even if like there's a little someday you'll find, oh, look, there's a little white mark from the pencil that I didn't quite get. Maybe we'll just leave that because it's a charming thing that reminds us of the care and the work that has gone into making this rakusu. So I just actually love that. And I think that it's a nice thing that each step of the way that we look at ways that it can be meditative, and that we can honor the work that we're doing, and what the rakusu will be like when we're finished. So we are going to keep going though. We're going to do A and C. Let's do it. C first. All right. So let's take these guys, move those to the side. All right, we're going to take C. Now B doesn't get any tucks, so you should have 4 of these. We're not going to work with these today. We're just going to put that to the side, but we will work with them when it comes time to line up the strips to make sure they're correct and in alignment. Okay, so we have C to work with next. And you'll be doing, we just did D, so you just threw that 1. And now this is C, and you'll be doing 2 of these. Now I'm only going to do 1. And then at the end of this, I'll take time to make the rest of my strips, and then we'll come back for part 2. But we're going to make each of them at this, 1 of each. So we'll do C next, because it's a little fussy because it's so thin. And then A is the more complicated one with several tucks. So easy, medium, and hard. All right, so now I take my pattern. And again, one of the things that that I mentioned is that if you don't have a copy shop or a Kinko's, or you don't have a printer, or know anyone with one, you can make these patterns with graph paper. And if you need more instructions for how, let me know, and I could maybe make another video with how to make it out of graph paper, or I'm happy to jump on Zoom with you to show you how to do that. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and start this on with C, and make sure that our little strip is all lined up. And do keep an eye on the fabric, because a lot of times, if you put a piece of paper in place, it just pretty much stays put, and with your fabric, it can do these kinds of numbers, and where are you going? Get back here. So we want to make sure that things are lined up properly, and that you can see with your C that it's in alignment with the blue line here on the graph paper, and at the bottom. Line the bottom up with this as well. Okay. Oops. There we go. Yeah, this particular fabric is a little bit soft. Hopefully the quilting cotton is going to be a little firmer than this, have a tighter weave than this, which is a good thing. So this is actually a cotton from the bed sheet that I used to make my practice rakusu, and it's a little bit soft, a little softer than I would recommend for the black fabric that you're going to make the rakusu out of. Oops. And it tends to shred a little bit. Get my handy sewing pouch up there. Okay. All the way up, nice and straight. All the way at the side, nice and straight. Okay. There we are. And again, we're going to double check what measure twice, cut once, right? This one is measure and check several times, and then mark here with your pen. All right, since it's a soft fabric, I'm going to go a little easier on it. There we go. All right, make sure we're still lined up, and I can see that the dotted line here lines up across. There we go, better. I'm just making sure it matches the little lines. So it's lined up on this side, lined up along here, and lined up along here and along the blue line of the graph paper. Okay. There we go. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing up here. Double checking again, and I have it nice and straight. There we go, straight, straight, and straight across. Straight across. Nice. Oops, oh dear, okay. And that happens, you know, pretty easily. Your fingers can slip a little bit. Now, and this particular one is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to match your line on your graph paper as well, because it's going to be that 7/8 of an inch, and these are in 1/4 inch increments that you'll be able to line those up nicely. Make sure they're nice and parallel. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, still lined up. Okay, nice. And yet again, nice and straight, straight across, straight, and then great. All right. So we have our little bitty tuck ready to go. And we're going to refold these guys so you can see that we have an outie going for us. So this is going to be coming out from the length of the fold. So I want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind as we fold. All right, so let's go with our little bit of moisture. Looks like I'm going to a little bit more than I had planned. And I'm going to come up here and fold. Oh, actually, we're going to fold at the top of this piece. See how this is our 7/8 of an inch for where our outie will be, our tuck will be. And we want to fold this one out. So I'm going to press that with my fingers nice and firm. And then this will come down to meet this guy. Okay. So now I've got these two edges meeting, and the middle as the one that will be folded in. Okay. Give it a nice squeeze. And let's double check and see that, aha, this guy came out like this. This guy's coming out like that. Now, before the fabric gets soft and loses that little finger press, then let's get a couple of clippies. Oops. Alrighty, and there we go. Okay. So again, we have our tuck this way, and the tuck will be coming out that way. So we know that that's correct. And then we're going to work on this guy. I'm going to moisten the top one because that's where it's going to be folding, and the middle one. Okay. And then we'll confirm that, yes, we're going to have this line is going to be our fold. So see how it matches. So we're not going to leave anything to chance with hoping for the best. We're going to visualize that and have our success. All right, so there we go. And then those two match. Yeah, just nice, very nice, beautiful. So I'm going to squish with my fingers. Squish, squish, squish. You can also kind of push it down on whatever surface that you're using. Now, I'll talk about this light board another time as well when we're actually stitching. But unfortunately, it doesn't show very well on that. Oh, not very well at all on camera. Let me turn this off. That it's something that you can adjust, but it doesn't glow like that in real life when you're looking at it. But it is something to help if you have difficulty with your eyesight, especially for black on black sewing. You're going to need a really good task light, and even for doing these tucks, a really good task light. And then this light board can be really helpful as well to kind of like a backlight on an ebook. So whether you have a paper white or a Kobo, that the backlight can really help be able to see better. So and I'll link to that in as well. But unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that very well. I'll have to maybe check with Manny or Kodo about how to do that without being glowing in the dark there. All right, so I've got these matched, and get my little clippies. And my little clippies. Okay, now let's double check. And very happy with that. See, I've got the folds are where they should be and where they should be on the strip. So, yay, yay, yes. Okay, so let's move this to the side. And it's time for A. A is the challenge, right? So now that you've had the practice, we're ready for A. All right, so when we're looking at A, then we need to make a tuck that goes out This top one is an outie. This part is the innie. There we go, outie again. So this little tuck goes out. This large one goes in, and then the bottom part is going to go out. So you can see kind of the, maybe I'll show you better against this gray fabric. So you can see the dimensions here, the topography of these tucks. So we're going to recreate that. We're going to make sure that this and this matches. So let's unfurl this for a bit so we can mark the lines. It does have, like say, have stitching line with little dots, but we're going to ignore that for now. And we're not going to worry about A1 or A2. I talked to Marilyn about this, and she wanted me to emphasize that the two A strips are the same. Where we'll make a difference will be at the end when we have a different seam allowance when we put the frame around the face. So never fear, don't worry about the A1 or A2. We'll just be considering we're making two A strips, and they'll be exactly the same right now. And we'll work on the seam allowances in a later video when we're ready for the frame of them. So we still have a few steps before we get to the frame. All right, so let's move this up so we can see a little better. And I'm going to line up the bottom edge on my graph paper and along the side. Make sure I'm in alignment and lined up properly. I'll switch to a darker color. So I'm in great shape here, and keep everything lined up. So even if I move it, it will line up properly. Okay, so all along here and here are even. My pen was a little crummy. Let me switch. And if you do use a pencil, your white pencil, one of the a good thing is to have a pencil sharpener handy, because that way if you hit the fabric and have it chip or the little tip fall off, then you'll have a sharpener handy. All right. There we go. So it does take a little time, a little bit of being a little fussy to make sure everything is nice and lined up and straight and doesn't go moving around. There we go. There we are. And I am using a little bit more of an open weave fabric for this particular strip. And I'm hoping that it'll also, when we're doing the seam allowances, that might be helpful for the demonstration. But we'll see. Okay. All righty, so let me hold that down, that's straight. There we go. Now, the other thing you can do, of course, is to measure yourself without doing the pattern side by side. And if you want to do that, certainly feel free. I found it to be a little bit confusing. I would find myself, wait a minute, is it 15/16? You know, and with marking it directly from the pattern, for me was really helpful and helped me to not get kind of wrapped around the hub with wondering about my measurements and if my measurements were correct. Okay, so line the fabric up to this and this, line this guy up along the bottom, make sure it's nice and straight, kind of flatten that out. And here we go. Make sure that's actually nice and straight. Straight, straight, straight. All right. Okay. Now, if I can do this without moving things too much. Go nice and straight. Good. Very gently. Together. Measure once, measure 2 or 3 times, mark once. Just patiently keep everything lined up. Okay. Move this guy down. And we're going to it takes up. Okay, let's move it down a little bit. I'm going to put it on that line. Sorry, I'm putting things in front of the camera. Sorry about that. Okay, so this guy lined up, and you probably can't see very well, but have this lined up and this lined up. And then I'm going to go here and make sure that these are lined up and even, and that this guy is lined up with this line. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I know this is tedious, but it also, all this little tediousness is going to save you a lot of headaches in the long run. Okay. So it really is worth it to do all this. Line up, line up. Nice and straight. Oopsie. Oh, there we go. I'm touching it with my fingers. Yeah, this one is the hardest one because we have all these lines to draw in there. Go. And just a little wonkiness, just a little out of kilter can have a big effect as it, um, adds to the out of alignment on down the road, on down the strip. There we go. Nice. Okay, and then this tiny little guy, gonna line him up straight, straight, straight and straight. Nice. And try to gently move that. Now, if you're using quilting cotton, you'll find that your fabric will probably behave itself pretty well. This is a firmer weave material, and it's holding its place quite nicely. But if you're using linen, you'll actually probably find that that a linen is going to have that firmer texture that's going to be cooperating with you really nicely. A little harder to work with, but it does hold its shape nicely. This would be why you wouldn't want to use a slippery silk or brocade until you become very proficient and skilled. And then maybe make one of those beautiful silk brocade rakusus that are often given to a roshi or other Zen master as a gift, for a celebration or commemoration. You've probably seen, I think Roshi Joan has a beautiful brocade rakusu. But we are humble and we're going to be using a lovely black cotton for our first rakusu, for our jukai. All right. So we're going to go back to our we're going to go back to our pattern, and we're going to recall the direction for all of these tucks. So as you can see them illustrating this little guy, the shaded one goes down. This one is going to go up. This one goes down. This one goes up. And we've hopefully, when you did the paper pattern episode, you did this with the A, and discovered that you did indeed fold them correctly. And kind of refold and make sure that we're happy and that we're correct with the direction the folds are going. So as you can see, we have this illustration, and now we have the reality of it in 3 dimensions. So you see the difference. Can you take this fabric and see if it helps to show you the dimensionality, the topography of this. So again, this is the most complex one, and we want to make sure we get that right because it will also need to be in alignment with the other tucks. And we'll get to that in the next episode. We're going to work on folding this A strip. And this is our last strip to work on in this video. We're going to fold this. We did our D strip and the C strip. And now we're doing A. Then we'll move on from there. So let's, in the home stretch for this episode, we're going to make these tucks. All right, so I'm going to take my little paintbrush here. I'm going to moisten the top fold and the middle fold. And you may find that when you work with your fabric, you don't really need to do the moistening, but I have found it to be very helpful with fabric that is maybe a little softer. Okay, so now I'm going to make sure I'm matching correctly. And yeah, I got this. This one is going to match this one. So now these two are perfect. Perfect. I used the P word when we need to be using precision, not perfection. Right. Then this line is going to come over and it's going to marry up with this line. I think in the paper pattern video, I kept saying they are going to kiss. So we have our romantic K-dramas that we like. And then this line is going to be another one that gets finger pressed in place. Nice, nice squeeze. We have quite a few little clippies on hand, and we're going to clip this together. And I'm going to double check again. Okay, I have this. This is a tuck that goes out like this, and this one does too. When I look at the back, see that this tuck is the same as this. Right. So one down and a bunch more to go here. All right, so as you're looking at this, then ask yourself before I tell you, which of these lines should be moistened and folded first? So hopefully you're looking at your own fabric with the marks. And you can say, which one should I fold? And you think, this guy. So where does he live in this set of 3? We're just going to look at the set of 3. And you're going to see that, this is the same as this one. So now let's moisten this because the coarser weave actually doesn't work quite as well with the moistening. So you might find that if you have a fabric that you're using that has this coarse weave that you can see the weave more clearly than, say, the tight weave of a quilting cotton, then it may not absorb as well. So just do a little bit, but then maybe finger press it a little harder for a little longer time. Okay, so now I'm going to take this solid line and I'm going to give that a good press, because this is the one that'll be on top to create the outie. That's this outie, not outie. Then I'm going to pick the guy up and I'm going to take these solid lines and I'm going to match them up. Make sure. And sometimes you'll find that maybe the line is underneath a little bit. Maybe you got too much of a fold, but we'll be able to adjust that as we go along. Okay. Press. Let's give it a nice finger press. And we'll be doing more. We'll iron these eventually. We're going to put the basting stitches in, but for right now, we're going to just make sure that we are correct in our folds and tucks. Yay! All right. So this is happiness. There we go. So we're getting there. So we've got this guy and this guy, and we know that's correct. We're going to double check again and get that correct. So these two are right. And we're next going to take a look at this fold, because it's a teeny tiny little bit. It's going to be hidden, as the outie, or the innie rather, and this one as an outie. Okay, so we can look again at seeing that this guy is out, this guy is down, this is the innie, and this is the out again. So we've got this bottom part is right here, and then this top part is the line that's going to go out, so that we're going to fold this way. Okay, so you say that makes sense? Yeah. All right, now let's moisten this guy again. Excuse me, here we go. Add a little bit more water. Sending these just a little bit more. There we go. Oh, sorry. I hope I didn't scare you. All right, so we're going to fold the line in and give it a good finger press. Now, I'm going to double check again. All right. Now, my professional background is actually first in neonatal intensive care. And so as you're saying, oh my gosh, this woman is so nitpicky or so fussy, I took care of teeny tiny little babies for many, many years. And so it's kind of wired in my DNA to be extra careful, double check and triple check in these tiny little folds. And it just reminds me of taking care of those tiny little babies. So The next step will be taking this solid line, and I'm going to tuck him in real tight to match this top line. Okay, so the third line is the one that we're going to match with that little line in the middle, which there's not a lot of room here for that tuck. I'm going to really press, good strong pressing, the finger press, and give it a clip. And keep pressing so that you have a nice firm finger press. And let's double check again. So here we go, our outie, and clearly our outie. We have this guy matching here. This guy matches. This guy matches. And then we'll do this last fold. Okay. So we're getting there. We're getting so close, and look how nice it's just really coming together. So, and like I said, when we're going to finish the strips, I'll give you your homework assignment, and then when we come back, we'll be lining the strips up and making any tiny little adjustments that need to be made before we stitch the strips together. Because since these are so small and the seam allowances are only 1/4 of an inch, so we want to make sure that all the strips are in place and are correct, so that we don't wind up with stitching them together and all of a sudden going, nothing works. So we'll make sure it falls in place and falls together right the first time. So to save a little bit of those headaches from trying to do it over and over. Okay, so let's bring our pattern back. And we have our one last fold to work on. And we're going to say, yeah, the top line is this line. Right? So we've got this line and this line. So that's what we want to fold. So I'm going to moisten this top line. I'm going to moisten. And again, be sure you're just very lightly dabbing a tiny bit of moisture. That's kind of the beauty of this type of pen, water pen, because it's made for, like, say, watercolor pencils. And it's not meant to like be, you know, a watercolor wash or anything. It's just to kind of gently moisten the pencil, the lead that is on your paper. So that kind of thing. And you can do that easily with just a little cup of water and a regular soft bristle brush. Just make sure you maybe have a little piece of paper towel and make sure it's just nice and just barely moist. You don't want it soaked. All right, so fold this back. So just like that. Make sure you can see. So you're going to fold it back just like that. There we go. And then folded it back, and then we're going to carefully match this folded straight line to the straight line right there, with the middle line being the fold on the back. All right, so I'm gonna get my fingers in here on the sides, give it a nice squeeze, and along the top. Careful, so we'll retain the proper fold. Okay. I'm actually going to scoot this guy down and pick up a clippy and put that right there. Continue to be sure that it's lined up properly. Move that little clippy over. And that clippy where it belongs. Then I'm going to make that last double check that I've got this is correct. And this outie, this little piece is correct. It's nice that the shadow kind of shows well, so you can see that it confirms that this is correct. This one is straight, and then this one is out. The fold is out. So it's kind of the challenge of calling them innies and outies when it's like, wait, which is out or which is up or down. But never fear. We actually, I think this is a good illustration and can show that the pattern is what we have in mind, of what we've been able to accomplish, this and this that match. So success. And your homework now, and you have homework before part 2. And what you'll need to do is, after you've finished doing A, C, and D, you want to make another A and another C. So before you watch part 2, make sure your folds are ready for both A's, both C's, and you'll have finished your D. So, and I'm going to take a break and do the same thing. So I'm going to make my second A and C, and when we come back, our next episode will be part 2, and that will be taking these strips that we've made and lining them up and making sure that when we do line them up, that they will be, oops, I bumped the camera again. I'm still working on my skills as a cinematographer. So when we come back, then we'll be lining up these strips and making any tiny little adjustments that we might need to make. Oops, so kind of soft here, it's bumping into the clippies. And we'll make any adjustments that we need to make to be sure that everything lines up and that the lines are straight across and all of that, is there are actually some lines that should match each other. And if they don't, we'll make little adjustments and make sure that that is the case. And then we'll baste down these seam lines. So these tuck lines. So all the places where you're seeing these tucks, we're going to use that basting stitch. And I'll be refreshing your memory about how to do the basting stitch, which is also called a running stitch, in the next episode. And so we'll have, once you've completed this, and I wanted to break it into 2 parts because this is kind of labor intensive and time consuming, but it is something that I think you'll be really happy that you've completed, because then it shows you exactly where you're ready for your sewing, and the sewing will fit together actually in a much smoother way. And I think you'd be very happy that you've done this extra preparation to be able to accomplish that. So thanks for staying till the end. I know it's been kind of a long one with a lot of these little details. And since you stayed to the end, then you have a little assignment here. So part 2, should it be part 2 Rakusu Boogaloo? Should it be Revenge of the Strips? Should it be Son of Strips? So put in the comments what you think our part 2, our Revenge of the Strips should be, and we can have a little bit of a laugh as we take a break now and complete that. So thanks so much, and me say goodbye properly. So thanks for listening. And if you do have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. You know, subscribe to the channel, click on that notification bell so that way you'll be notified when part two is published. And we're going to be taking a look at getting closer and closer to our goal of having this lovely personalized and intimate garment that we'll be making our lovely Rakusu. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.